Welcome to Bluegrass Brooklyn, our podcast all about the music we love, straight from the Bluegrass borough of Brooklyn, New York. Welcome to this Monday edition of Bluegrass Brooklyn podcast. I'm your host, Mike Wilner. Today we continue to explore the theme of music, mind, and spirit. All of those things we need to do as musicians outside of technical practice to become the best musicians we can be. We're speaking with Andy Reiner, the host of the podcast River of Suck, who's got some insightful and important things to talk to us about. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this and get a lot out of it. I know I did. Before we go there, however, please remember to follow us at Bluegrass Brooklyn, Brooklyn spelled BKLYN, on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. If you want to get in touch, please drop an email to mike@bluegrassbrooklyn.com with your thoughts, suggestions, ideas, or just say hi. I promise you will respond. And if you're looking for jams in Uptown Manhattan, Riverdale, the Bronx, New Jersey, and increasingly all around the country, go check out bluegrassjamsnearme.com. Okay, let's roll. So here we are with Andy Reiner, among other things, the host of the podcast, The River of Suck. Andy, thanks for taking time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. First things first, I have to ask you to explain the title of the podcast.
Oh, sure. So the River of Suck is a somewhat controversial term. So I've heard. The origin of it is that I was studying violin performance, getting a degree from Berklee College of Music in Boston. And one of my professors used this term in our lessons. He would use this concept of the river of suck. Like, you have to suck at something before you can be good at it. You really have to just get in there and try. And he thought that was what I needed to hear in my lessons. So at some point, I started giving talks on having a healthy musical attitude. And it was interesting to present the thoughts that I had, but then I realized it would be more interesting and more fun to do it in a conversation format. And then there's these things called podcasts, which I'm sure you've heard of. And
I'll look into it.
So I thought the River of Suck was a good metaphor to use as a name. And it helps us kind of poke a little fun and laugh at ourselves. When things seem impossible, it's serious, but it's also not that serious. Like, let's have a little humor about it. So that's the term.
Very cool. Yeah, I have to say that it became very clear and I connected with the intent of the title immediately as we had a brief chat before. And one of the things we talked about was keeping motivated and keeping tracked while facing the challenges, sometimes greater, sometimes lesser, of musical education. And that's what I want us to talk about a bit today. But I do want to mention, you mentioned poking a little fun and keeping a little humor in it. I'd say that 8 out of 10 of the top tier talents we get to talk to, when asked, what's the key to practice? What's the key to progressing? And the answer inevitably starts with keep it fun, keep the joy. If you're not enjoying it, something's wrong, And
that's right.
The image of some poor student slaving away on the F sharp minor scale in their practice room for 6 hours and, that's probably pretty archaic thinking, I'm guessing. But let me ask you, if I gave you the opportunity to give me one, we'll do more than that, but if I ask you to give me one key piece of advice in terms of traversing the river of suck, what would you offer me?
Well, I would explain the analogy, if that's okay with you. So here it is. The river of suck is an imaginary river that flows through your mind. You're on one side, you're on your comfort shore. Behind you is your comfort cave. This is where you do all the things you already know how to do. Things that they're easy, they're in your muscle memory. You got this. Easy, no problem.
Yep.
Now, you can look on the other side and see little tiny versions of yourselves, and they're tiny because they're far away. They seem impossible. And those little versions of you on the other side of the river of suck can do all the things that you wish you could do now. The problem is, in between you and future you is the raging river of suck filled with whitewater rapids, cringe rocks, and thought piranhas, of course, are those negative thoughts that try to sabotage our good vibes. So the idea of you have to suck at something before you can be good at it, you have to swim across the river. You need to, or build a boat, find some path. You have to find a path that is going to realistically get you from point A to point where you want to be. And like you said, I think zeroing in on the joy and the fun of the practice, even when it's hard, like when things seem impossible, when things seem like we'll never get there, is when it's the most important to keep our eyes on, like, why are we doing this? And also, how can we make music fun when the overwhelming feelings of, I'm not good enough, what will they think of me? Those kind of thought piranhas are trying to attack us from all sides, but we can, with some degree of focus and vision for where we want to be, and not just accepting, I am the way I am today forever. I'm stuck here. Like, we can unstick ourselves from any kind of situation if we believe in ourselves. But it sort of takes that leap of faith to do something that's hard to get you to where you want to be.
That's a very powerful analogy. Let me ask you to think about two contexts that a lot of bluegrass musicians find themselves. I'm going to make it three.
Sure.
One is the jam circle, where you're playing along and the break opportunity is circling around to you and ... Let's leave that there. The second is the bandstand, where you're performing for people, whether it's informal at a street festival or if it's formal, like you're in a performance hall. And the third one is the recording studio, where you can put a $sign on every wrong note because it's costing money to be in that room playing. So
sure.
Is there in your mind a different approach to dealing with the thought piranhas, et cetera, in those three environments? Or is there a unifying field theory that just kind of pulls it all together?
You know, when you talk about the jam circle and the stage, I do feel like those have more in common with mindset than the studio. Because when you're in the studio, say you're recording on somebody else's album, I do think the expectations are a little different and the stakes are higher. So in that way, I think those are very different situations. So let me speak to the jam circle and the stage first, because I do think there's something more unifying for that. One of the biggest struggle points that people run into, especially when they're learning how to play music and they're not, say, professionals, is joining the jam and feeling like they deserve to be there when so-and-so can play this good and so good at that.
Yep.
And there's this sort of downward spiral of comparisons. It's really scary. And knowing that there are people who are more proficient than you, who have been playing the music for decades longer than you, say you're on stage and your heroes are in the audience, right? There's all these things happening that could cause us to downward spiral. And in these moments, I think it is important to remember that in music, unlike extreme action sports, when we make a mistake, nobody dies, nobody gets injured. And especially when it comes to a jam, if you find the people who are welcoming, they should be the kind of friends that you can make who will allow you to take risks and take musical chances without knowing if you're going to pull it off and still be your friend when it's all over.
Yeah.
Your value as a human is not based on how good your last solo was in the jam or on stage.
Right.
And so that perspective, I think, is important to remember. But to me, the most exciting elements of bluegrass is that it's basically fast country jazz, and we get to take risks. For me, I'm not going to just play licks that I have practiced for that thing just to sound perfect. I would rather take a chance and fall on my face than just play it the same way every time. the improvisatory elements bring a higher level of risk, but the reward when you play something you didn't expect, I think makes it all worth it. So that brings me to the youest you. You want to be the youest you that you can be, Victor Wooten. And yeah, that's the thing about being on stage or in the jam, is ultimately when it comes to your solo, when you're improvising, what's going to come out is going to be you. It's going to be the totality of the things that you have practiced, the music that you've heard in your life and internalized, and how you're feeling in the moment, and how well you're listening to the musicians around you is all going to come together and create a unique solo that will only happen that way, that one time. And that's you. And that's both the most incredible thing and the most terrifying thing. But let's talk about the studio, because this is where it really matters more. We're under the microscope in the studio. We may be being paid for our time, and we need it to be good in a way that a solo that's risky on stage you can pull off. But there's, I like to say there's no such thing as mistakes, just if you stop and acknowledge or you swear or something. But the scenarios where that's really just not true is when you're playing in a section in an orchestra. If you play wrong note in your section, that is a mistake. You did the wrong note. That is a mistake. And in the studio, I would actually define the mistake maybe as playing something where, let's say, the producer or the person you hired you is not happy with the final product. If you allow yourself to do a bunch of takes and get comfortable, you can get there. But part of what makes people so nervous a lot of the time is they're just literally not prepared enough. So being prepared with the context you need to know about the music you're playing, being prepared with the proficiency you need on your instrument to pull off the thing that you're attempting to pull off, is going to make you a lot less nervous. Practicing before you arrive to the studio so you know that when you get there, it's going to work. And there's a lot of different things you can do to accomplish mental health. Say you have to record a solo on a really hard song. If I'm worried about my ability to pull it off in the studio, I will compose a solo beforehand, before I get there, and have that to where I can reliably play it in a way that would be studio perfect. And then in the studio, I'll play that solo and I'll also do some improvising. And that way the pressure is off, because I know that if I'm having a rough day, I don't have to be brilliant because I'm prepared.
Yeah, that's professionalism, right?
Well, it's scary to not be prepared. That's the scariest thing. I do think one of the thought piranhas that people have as they're playing is, what do other people think of me? What do they think about my solo? Do they like me? And it gets into that stuff. And I don't have necessarily all the answers on how to quiet that voice down, other than that I know that if you acknowledge it and be in conversation with those voices, even if that sounds a little crazy, then they feel acknowledged and they can quiet down a little bit. But the sheer reality is, if you're trying to play music with other people and you're worried about what other people think about you more than you're focused on listening to other musicians that you're playing with and putting your energy towards being a better team player, I just think that's the wrong place to put our mental energy, because we can only focus on so many things at a time.
Yeah.
And I think by refocusing what is at the front of our mind when we're playing music with other people, if we can make that what they're playing instead of how good am I and how brilliant am I? Because it's not just about you when you're playing music with other humans. That's the big thing. If you want to be the best musician, you're going to be the best team player. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, it's not just your opinion. I have news for this. I've heard this any number of times from any number of players and related experts. I want to shift the focus, or just rotate the lens a little bit. So we're talking about sort of musical contexts where we need to be prepared to deal with negative self-chatter and stuff like that. Sure. So let me add one more context. The practice room.
Yeah.
Do you see any sameness with jamming, performing, or is there another mindset you're applying in the practice room?
Practice room is different because It has to be the place where you are safe with your own thoughts and your own abilities where you're at today. The idea that, you have to sound good when you practice is going to bring you a lot more trouble than benefits. On the fiddle, for example, playing way up the neck
Yeah.
brings forth questions of tone and intonation, and like just general sound becomes more challenging than, say, playing in first position on a fiddle tune. So, if you can't afford yourself the space to get up there and be doing it and have it sound a little squeaky, and then do it a bunch more times, see if you can get rid of that squeak.
Right.
That is the place where it's the playground, really, where you get to try the things. For me, I love the looping pedal. Is my number one tool for practice and for composition and for solo performing, because it gives you the tactile feedback of what do other people feel like when they have to play with me.
Interesting.
Whether that's my rhythm playing or my solos or my melodies, harmonies, you really are the one person band when it comes to the looping pedal. And, say you're playing fiddle, if you want to practice intonation, okay, sure, you can turn on YouTube and click cello drone. But what if you make your own drone, work on your bow control of your long, slow bows, keeping that tone consistent, multi-track that overdub it a bunch of times so it's got this big, thick sound. You give it a fifth, give it a low octave, make it beautiful. Now you're in this like Zen space of like, like this is a relaxing place to be, and you can, say forget about time and only focus on intonation. One thing at a time is really about all our brain can handle when we want to make our practice more focused. So instead of, I want to get better at this song, focus on, I need to work on my intonation in this key and in this order of notes. I need to work on my timing without worrying about intonation. That kind of separation of different elements. And the fact that if you do it on a looping pedal, if you're playing a song or a tune or anything with the form, you have to be able to lay down the rhythm on your instrument, not just play the melody, which ultimately makes it easier to play with the mandolin player, the guitar player, the banjo player, the other humans, because you know more about where they're coming from because you've been in their shoes. I can't recommend the looping pedal enough.
Awesome recommendation. I know the first time I started playing with recorded play along, anything I thought I knew pretty well just fell to pieces immediately. Just immediately. So of course I was on this learning website called Artist Works, where you record, you learn a lesson, then you record, like you learn hot cross buns, and a pre-recorded video lesson, and then you record your hot cross bun rendition and send it back. And it would take like 73 takes to just get through it. Not perfectly, just to get through it. And I found that psychological phenomenon interesting. I examined it closely because why would the fact that it's being recorded have such an impact? But the looping pedal, definitely going to take you up on that one. All right, so let me rotate the lens a little bit. We're still talking about contexts where we might encounter the river of suck. And maybe this is a little afield, but you'll let me know. Certain musicians face challenges, and three that come to mind, because I'm facing several of them, but one is crippling anxiety. There are musicians I know in my jam circle who I just wish they'd say, look, I'm just going to play. There are physical challenges. For example, some people, they have problems, neurological problems with their hands or whatever, or their shoulder. It's the psychology of facing those challenges. And the third, which is near and dear to my heart, is older learners. I spoke to my fiddle teacher the other day, and he's got a student. She's an 80-something-year-old woman who's wants to take 3 lessons a week. And he's like, that's a bit much. It didn't occur to him, but I explained to him, I'm sure that woman feels a sense of urgency. Like, how long have I got? I better just put the pedal to the metal and get in as much as possible, but which is probably not productive musically. So all of those challenges. So is there a general way you can think that we could address them, or do you need to address those individually?
Yes.
Great answer.
Yeah. Here's the overall thing that I think we could all use a little more of. There's a thing that I think about and practice and recommend to people that I call pretend confidence. It's when you pretend to be confident. You don't necessarily feel like you deserve to be in that jam, or you think like your solo is not that cool. But when it comes to playing the fiddle, people can hear in our shaky bow that we're nervous.
Yep.
It's like it's very hard to lie on the fiddle, right?
Amen.
I'm advocating here for a little bit of fibbing, I guess, which is that you're pretending to be confident. You play the note like you mean it, even if you don't know what you mean.
Huh.
Just when you play that solo in the jam, on the stage, in the studio, you play it like you mean it, even if you don't know what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
And even if all that takes is telling yourself that you're going to pretend to be confident, for me, that does a lot. And then it changes my mindset and my bow is working differently. And the goal of that, of course, is to, in time and with practice, that can develop into real confidence. But I'm convinced there's people who look confident everywhere, on stages, on TVs, on podcasts, on the radio, and they're terrified of what people think, but they're doing it like they mean it, like they deserve to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And all it takes is this one little flip of like, I'm going to appear confident. It's almost like acting. You can act as the idealized, stylized version of yourself that you don't feel like internally off stage that you are, but maybe it's your stage persona. Like you're doing an acting job of pretending that you're going to be confident, and people will react to that. And that's, I've mentioned downward spirals before. What we're looking for is the upward spiral to success. So that's my overarching answer. Crippling anxiety, physical challenges, older learners, I do think are different scenarios. I'll keep it short, but older learners, if I had a nickel for every time an 80-year-old told me, I wish I started when I was 70. And then I hear like some 30-year-old, 35-year-old be like, oh, it's too late for me. And I'm just like, you know what? Music is for everybody. Yeah. I think skiing is a very good analogy for this. They have, green circle for beginner runs, black diamonds for the expert runs, blue squares, the intermediate, double black is you could die. Again, with music, there's no risk. If we play a wrong note, we don't die. It's just important to keep the perspective on the fun and making friends who we enjoy playing music with. If you stop worrying about being somebody else and you focus on being the best version of yourself, even if you're missing a finger, then the physical challenges become less about what can't I do and more about what can I do.
Yeah.
Now, crippling anxiety, okay. That's the thought piranhas stopping you from, because if you're using the word crippling anxiety, I'm picturing someone in the jam who, when the solo gets passed to them, they choke.
Yep.
Right. I think so much of it is, that is especially who my pretend confidence advice is for. You do have to get in there, and it's going to be hard and it's going to be scary. And so only by embracing fear as part of who we are and something that's not a problem, but part of us, that's the scary, but only path forward. But also, putting yourself in situations where it's people that you want to play music with who are going to encourage you. So wherever you are in your community, whether that's the brewery jam or going to a festival and going jam to jam, when you find your people, you'll know.
Yep.
And it is important to not focus on trying to be accepted by people who are not vibing with you. It's important to find the people that you musically vibe with and to spend as much time as you possibly can playing music with them.
Great answers. Thank you. And great encouragement. One of the things I just want to harken back to our conversation about the performance contexts. Jake Jolliffe said very profoundly, most people are too hard on themselves on the bandstand and not hard enough on themselves in the practice room. Right?
Yeah.
That's when you should be bearing down on every little mistake and looking to improve it, not when you're flowing on stage. All of this discussion has been about context and where one might we encounter the river of suck. You've given lots of very good advice, but are there tools, methodology, approach that you apply and can advise us on to help us build our boat or get our swimming, inflatable swimmies on or whatever?
Well, I think I touched on it before with the practice thing. If your goal is generalized, I want to be better, well, that's a difficult goal to attain, because what is it that's going to make us better? Is it having better tone? Is it being able to play complex rhythms with more groove and accuracy? Is it being able to play the double stops in tune? So I guess my advice is to be as specific as possible with your goals so that you can see the path of what you need to improve on to make that goal happen. Being a better person, being a better musician sounds good, but how are you going to get there? There are specific things that we can practice. And for each person, that's going to be different. So that's the value, of course, of private lessons, when you have an instructor who is, in real time giving you feedback on what you need to practice. I would just say being really specific about what are your goals, and then being realistic about what you're going to have to do to get there.
Andy, more than a few times in our conversations, you've mentioned getting out of your comfort zone. Why is that such a great idea?
When you stay in your comfort zone, you're stuck with things that you already know. You're stuck with things that you've already played. Getting out of our comfort zone pushes us to create new music, to listen to others more, to challenge ourselves, to grow, and to not just stay where we are. Whether it's a style of music or an ability of musicians that we're stepping up, maybe we're stepping up from the jam to getting on the stage, right? That's a big comfort zone shift in our mindset. That's going to be the difference between reaching those impossible seeming goals and just waking up every day feeling like you're not where you want to be. Right. Always reach, keep reaching. It's never going to be easy. It's always going to be scary, but I think that's more fun.
This has been a fascinating conversation, Andy. Is there anything you've got coming up or any specific stuff you're doing that you wanted to share with the listeners while we got their ear?
Absolutely. So, number one, this conversation has been a lot about the River of Suck, and that is a podcast as well. Just, wherever you find your podcasts, you're probably listening right now in a podcast app. Right. So we're in there too. Just search River of Suck. And I've got 37 episodes out. And every time I ask a new person these questions about having healthy musical attitudes, I just keep getting more brilliant and different answers. So my next one coming out will be with Rob Flax, who's an amazing multi-instrumentalist and singer-songwriter from Boston, Massachusetts. Also an old friend of mine. So really excited about that. I did take quite a long break from releasing episodes, and now we're back at it. So it's very exciting to me right now. I'm also in several bands. Rapid Grass. If you look up Rapid Grass, that's one word. And we're a Colorado bluegrass jam band full of songwriters and great musicians. We have a new album out on all of the streaming. It's called Valhalla. I would love it if you listen to it. I'm also in a band called Slay and Stinson with the vocal powerhouses of Travis Stinson and Scott Slay. This band won the first prize in the Rocky Grass band competition over the summer. So we will now be performing at Rocky Grass Festival next year. We have an album out called Product of Colorado, as well as we're working around the clock to release new music and singles. So definitely look up Slay and Stinson. I've got my own music that I put out under my name, Andy Reiner. I'm in Bandcamp and Spotify, all the places. We'd love to see you at Fiddle Hell. We have 2 versions, and I'd like to dispel the rumors. It's not all online, and it's not all in Massachusetts. Every April, we do an online Fiddle Hell. Every November, we do an in-person Fiddle Hell. And we have hundreds upon hundreds of fiddle players, not just fiddle players, mandolin players, banjo players, guitar players, bass players. And we come together in a polystylistic way and all mixed together. And we have workshops, jams, concerts. It's truly an epic thing. It's basically the biggest fiddle camp that we know of. Lastly, there's an opportunity that I think people should know about. I am part of an organization called the Bluegrass Journeymen, and it's a collective of musicians that goes to India and Nepal to share bluegrass music and to learn about the cultures of the countries we're visiting. And it has recently expanded into time intervals of teachers getting to hang out. We've got musicians hanging out for a month to 3 months, and anybody is welcome to apply. And if you go to thebluegrassjourneymen.com, and anybody is welcome to apply, and it's a paid opportunity. And traveling the world to play music is one of the greatest ways that we can build community and share things that we care about and get out of our comfort zones.
Yeah.
Getting out of a comfort zone is definitely something I could have talked about more today, but this is a really great opportunity and anyone is welcome to apply. I have one more amazing thing to talk about real quick, which is the Rustic Roots Retreat. We've done since 2011, so we're now getting up there in years as a camp. It is a outdoor camping jam camp, which is actually food focused. Yeah, it's a food camp masquerading as a music camp where we collaborate on big potluck dinners and we play music around the campfire, and we quite directly help people with crippling anxiety get better at jamming in a real life welcoming scenario. So that's at rusticroots.net, and we do it every July in the San Luis Valley in Colorado.
And if listeners want to learn more about the River of Suck or you in general, where can they find that online?
Yeah, I do post a lot on Instagram and Facebook. I try and generally am a little bit behind on andyreiner.com, but there's a lot of stuff there, especially if you want to check out my string orchestra music that I write for string orchestras. I've got several published pieces and a bunch of self-published pieces. You can hear all that stuff on my YouTube channel, Skiing Fiddler. That's also my Instagram, Skiing Fiddler. And I also have a Patreon for those who want to take their level of support into the monetary world. I sure appreciate it. I am an independent artist, and patreon.com/Andy Reiner I've been doing it for about a decade now, and I've pretty consistently had about 100 people on there. So I post as much as I can, and definitely stay in touch. Anybody who is listening who has questions, wants to get in touch about having a healthy musical attitude and your own personal journey, I'd love to hear from you.
Excellent. Okay. So, Andy, fascinating conversation. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Thanks again. So much great advice and so much insight. Thank you from the show to Andy. We really appreciate him coming and sharing his perspective and his wisdom, and we hope to have him back again soon. And thank you for joining. Please remember to follow us at Bluegrass Brooklyn, Brooklyn spelled BKLYN, on the various social media platforms. It helps a lot if you subscribe to and like and rate this podcast, and if you do, we do appreciate it. And if you'd like to just get in touch, offer any suggestions, ask any questions, drop an email to mike@bluegrassbrooklyn.com. And until then, we look forward to seeing you around the jam circle.
It's been many years since we were childhood sweethearts, blissful days that I never shall forget. And I know now